This skirt has what is sometimes called a fold-down casing. What this means is the casing is made by folding down the fabric. We may be varying from your guide sheet here. Once again, as long as the end result is the same, the method can vary. Working on the wrong side of your skirt, first we will press under 1/4 inch on the upper edge at the waistline. This is done so that we will not have these raw edges showing. Now is a time when your sewing gauge is a perfect tool. Just set the sewing gauge to 1/4 inch, and as you iron around, make sure you are 1/4 inch. Now don't go crazy here. Use your eye also. No need to pin just yet. Remember, your waistline is where you have your chalk marks. Continue all around your skirt's waistline. Now, remember we marked our fold line on this pattern? This is how much they want us to fold down our fabric to make our casing. With my skirt, it's 1.5 inches. We have to deduct 1/4 inch that we already folded. So we will set our sewing gauge at 1¼ inches. Or if you prefer, you can just check what the chalk mark is and set it that way. Some patterns will give you a fold line, others will not. When doing your skirt, check with your own guide sheet the amount to be pressed under. Some patterns require only 1 inch. Don't forget that first 1/4 inch fold you pressed under. If you wish, you may pin to hold in your iron. Don't forget that first 1/4 inch you pressed under. See how that was done to hide your raw edges? With this part of folding, you want to be a little bit more precise than with the first part. We want to try to get as close to that measurement as possible. A word about ironing. Never iron over pins. It will scratch your iron and may leave a mark on your fabric. Continue all around your skirt. Okay, let's sew this casing. Notice how when I ironed, I placed my pins running along the fold. If I would have put my pins perpendicular, I would need more pins than I own to hold this casing in place. I like to start sewing at the center back. You will see why when we close this later. You can look for your chalk mark to find your center back. Now, when sewing this casing, we will not be using a 5/8 inch mark as a guide. We want our stitching to be placed close to the lower edge of this casing. So let's place this casing under our presser foot, testing where we want to stitch. We want our stitching about 1/8 of an inch away, but have up to 1/4 of an inch to stitch without having that first fold come undone. This looks about right. Take a piece of masking tape and place it where the fold is. This is our guide for sewing our casing. This is what I want you to watch when stitching. Again, make sure to lock in your stitching. You will have to remove your pins as you come to them. It is important to use the tape as our guide and not your bottom edge, because when we turn this garment over to the right side, this is what you will see. How even is your stitching from the top? If your stitching goes a little wavy on the wrong side from this bottom edge, we don't care. It just means that when we fold it under, we didn't get a perfect 1 1/4 inch fold all around. No big deal, as long as that first 1/4 inch fold is not unstitched and able to come free. Continue to stitch all around, watching that guide. Stop about 1 inch from where you started and lock in your stitching. We're going to need this opening to insert our elastic. When it comes to inserting elastic, I like to differ from my guide sheets. The guide sheet will tell you to measure the elastic the size of your waist and add 1 to 2 inches. Instead, just take all the elastic that you have and put a safety pin on one end. Insert this elastic into your casing. I don't like to just add a set amount of inches to my elastic and insert. I would much rather put the garment on and get a nice fit. Sometimes the fabric is thick or heavy, and you may need more than the 1 to 2 inches allotted. Also, sometimes different elastics have a different amount of stretch. And if I do as I'm told in the guide sheet, I might end up with 2 pieces of elastic. I'd rather have 1. When inserting elastic, you are pushing the safety pin between your 2 layers of fabric. The only tough part might be when you come to a seam. You might get caught under it. Simply back up your safety pin and try to feel your way over it. Continue this all the way around your skirt until you come to the other end. When you have come out the other end, secure each end with its own safety pin. On the shortest end, leave about a 1-inch tail. Then we will try on our skirt. For the purpose of this video, we will use my dress form Sally. You will be doing the fitting on the person you are making the skirt for. Pull the elastic from the longest end until it feels comfortable. When you have a comfy fit, reposition your safety pin and cut off the excess elastic, leaving approximately a 1-inch tail. Now to sew this elastic together, first mark with your chalk where you have those safety pins on the elastic. Pull out the elastic enough so that it's easy to work with. And fold over the two pieces matching the chalk mark. Before sewing, check to make sure you have not twisted your elastic while inserting it. If you did, just untwist and repin. Trim this overlap to approximately 1/2 of an inch from your chalk mark. Why did we lap 1 inch and then trim? Because it's easier to work with the 1 inch. We will now sew this elastic together on our chalk mark. Go back and forth about 2 to 3 times to lock in this stitching well. Now it's time for us to close this casing up. First, drop in a different colored bobbin. Take your garment and on the right side, stitch your opening closed. Move all of the excess bulk out of your way. It will be easier to sew. You might want to feel to make sure that your casing is going under far enough. And make sure you do not catch the elastic when you're stitching. Lock in your stitching when starting. And also when you end. If you'll notice, when you're done, you can look inside your garment and always tell which is the back.